Welcome back to another episode of the Canon on the Boom and Bust channel. I'm your host Terry, and today reviewing episode 4 of Loki on Disney Plus. Yes. That was my reaction. That's all I can say is yes on every level. This was the episode I expected last week on every level. We got a lot more information. We furthered the plot. And I learned, or I feel like I at least understand Sylvie a whole lot more than I did last week. And people are talking about the chemistry and the character development. We literally didn't learn anything. Like what was it? It was maybe like a minute 15 seconds. The opening scene literally gave me 10 times more than last episode about Sylvie. And so this episode, I feel like we got everything. Action. Again, all the stuff I was looking for last episode. And we still have to see how it all plays out, the last 2 episodes. But it's safe to say episode 3 was complete filler. Now, I know some people are going to be like, well, that was them falling in love. Again, stupid. She was ready to kill him at the end of episode 2. And he really didn't make things much better in episode 3. So where in there did they fall in love? Especially Loki again himself said, you didn't tell me anything that whole episode. So I don't know where all that came from. We understand that that's about to become a thing. But honestly, it felt forced and awkward and out of nowhere. But I did like it. I mean, we didn't see them together much. But I did like it in this episode. Just the way it's being, not even them two as far as chemistry, but the idea of this relationship. And it seems like it's going to play a big role because that causes the Nexus event of epic proportions. And Mobius says that might be the key to taking this down. But then he also really dives in about this narcissistic, weird, and it's weird, idea of Loki falling in love with himself. And so it really has a lot of interesting points to it. I would hope their chemistry is a little better when we see them together, but because episode 3 was not good for me as far as their chemistry. But again, we learned a lot. There's so much to talk about, so much. But I want to say this. I think, and this might be reaching a little bit, but I do think that the overall message and the MCU does not get really pointed with messages because it's Disney. They want to appeal to kids. They want to appeal to progressives and conservatives, even though they might lean a little whatever way. But so they don't get real blatant with their message. But I think this whole show is about fluidity. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but fluidity with identity. I think that's what this is all about. Now, you could take it how you want. But I think that's the message of this or this season or this show in general. This idea of, like they keep saying, what makes a Loki a Loki? Like I'm labeled this, but what makes me this? We have, and then we're about to get into the other Lokis. Like there's different versions. We look different. We talk different. We might have, act different. We might have some same core things. Loki already mentioned this idea of being bisexual. But now we're talking about Loki liking himself or a version of himself. And it's just, I think this whole thing, just like the title card of the name Loki switching in all different letters and fonts, I think this idea of fluid identity is really what Marvel's trying to say with this show. But anyway, let's get to the actual meat and potatoes. What did I definitely was right about? I was right last week when they said, or Sylvie said that everybody in the TVA was variants. They weren't created. And again, I didn't think they were variants. I heard somebody else say that, but my initial thought after I think it was episode 2 was that these people were from Earth and like they were taken out of timeline. I didn't know if they were variants. I didn't know what it was. But like I said, the person that said they were variants, that made sense. So I liked his idea, added onto mine. And that's what it ended up being, 100%. And so there's that part. One thing that I mentioned last week, but I don't know how, but I didn't connect these dots because I was like, the reason I think they were from Earth is because you had, what was it, C20 or C whatever. She was just like, it's real. I want to go home. And they was like, TVA. She was like, no. I was like, so she's clearly like saw what her real life was. And we saw that was true in episode 3. And then I was like, maybe enchanting people does that. But then I was like, well, that can't be right because B-15 got enchanted and she's fine. But this episode brings that back where we see B-15 was not fine. She was holding it together, but she actually saw the truth as well. So I don't know. I did not see that coming. I don't know why I didn't. I literally pointed it out, but I didn't connect those dots. So I figured that's how it worked, but I ended up not, committing to it. So, but that's what it was. So Enchantress can show them I'm calling her Enchantress. Sylvie can show them these memories and prove that like they're variants, and that becomes a nice little piece. Now that actually most of the people that know it are kind of gone, but still that's going to be pivotal. And I don't know I think I said this before. I don't know if Sylvie's going to sit there and unlock everybody's memories or how they're going to do it, but that's going to become pivotal at some point. All right. Man, there's so much stuff. I'm bouncing around a little bit, but the idea that the timekeepers are not real, at least in the way that we think, it was a lot of people's thoughts, and they definitely gave you the vibe of Wizard of Oz, that behind the smoke and mirrors, it might not be anybody. And so this far, we think, and it seems like that's the case. Still don't know exactly, but no doubt the biggest mystery right now is who created the TVA. And how is really the bigger question to me. Like, this idea of who is interesting, but also how. Because for whatever reason, they have access to the different time. But on top of that, the Infinity Stones don't work there. Some magic doesn't work there. So and they clouded all these people's minds. There has to be some real, something going on. And, either if it's power or science, something's going on at the TVA. All right. So there's that. What do we got? Loki. See, Loki getting pruned was such a foresight. Now, we knew it didn't mean a whole lot because it's 2 episodes left in his show. Even though for a second, I was like, are they going to go with Sylvie as the lead? Like, would Tom Hiddleston sign on for that? Even though there's some stuff in the film or in the commercials that we haven't seen yet, but that could very easily be a Loki from a different timeline that she ran into or whatever. And Tom Hiddleston is just now playing different versions of Loki. So for a second, I was like, she's technically a Loki as far as we know. So we could be going into the territory of Loki as in Sylvie. But then we get the end credit scene and find out that's different. But like I said, the pruning was so foreshadowed. And it was done in first, I don't get it. Like, I really don't know if people think that way. Because every time I'm watching these shows or whatever, I'm like, if I'm in that situation, unless I double tap the person, like they say in Zombieland, I always double tap, I'm not putting my back to them. You just knocked out 6, 7, 8 people. They're all lined up behind you. just conversate 3 feet away from them in case somebody gets up or does something. Just conversate with your back away from them so you could have your eyes on what's happening. And whenever they don't do that, I'm like, okay, they're setting it up for something to happen in the back. And then he took forever to say what he wanted to say. And so it was a little cheesy. Although it was a little, I knew it was coming, but still it kind of hit you like, oh my God. And I did feel it because I'm like, even if she goes into the timeline and finds another Loki at some point, he's not going to be this Loki that found out how he loved her and found out about the TVA. You know what I mean? This version doesn't exist anywhere else. And so I was a little sad about that. But then we get the end credit scene and it's about to be Loki time. So that brings up a lot. Obviously, a lot of people are like, okay, President Loki, all these Lokis, we can't wait, a Loki fest. But my bigger question is, or at least my bigger observation is, they don't have the power to erase you from history. I don't know if Mobius is there, if C20, whoever. I don't know if all these other people are there. We only see Loki. So, it can very easily be like, it's not a eraser, it's a teleporter, and it sends you to a specific place. Or that it goes off your, what do they call it? Your time signature or your time aura. And it sends you to the same place with those people. Or it sends you, I don't know. They can have all types of rules. But the way it looks right now is that the thing doesn't erase you from history. It just sends you somewhere else. And so if that's the case where everybody that's been erased is there, then we could have Mobius and whatnot and other people to rise together. But if it's just him and all the Lokis, that'd be interesting too. So I'm curious as to what it all means. But what it does seem like that the TVA doesn't have the power to erase people from history. Obviously, it seems like the Time Masters aren't even really there, so they don't have the power to say where timeline should go. But they still somehow have the power to restrict the Infinity Stones and all that. So there still is a question about what exactly the TVA can do. So, and they have access to the time, or at least technology to jump them through time. So again, there's still questions about what the TVA can do, but one of the things it seems like they can't do is erase you from history. So there's that. Yeah, I mean, those are, I think, the big points. I mean, I did not care about Lady Sif. I never cared. I didn't like Thor until Ragnarok, or I didn't like those movies until Ragnarok. And she was gone by then. Never really cared, whatever. But I know a lot of people got a little pop out of that. So, people, it's funny to me, and I guess this is a side tangent, how some people really act like Marvel planned all this. Like some people act like they sat down in 2005 and planned all of this. It's just writers getting in the room deciding how could we fit this into this property. And some people just, Marvel does it again. They did. I knew it. They always knew. No, they did not. There's contracts. Dude, Iron Man was about to be out the MCU after that first contract. And at not the last moment, but Robert Downey decided to play ball when he realized he can't make money outside of the MCU. And so, people act like, oh, this was all planned. No, it was not. But anyway, it's nice that they throw stuff in there for some connective tissue. So that was cool. But, whatever. Now, again, that didn't make sense to me because I'm like, where is this? Like it's a memory, but I don't know. And then how can they put it on loop? I mean, they could put people on loop with the collars. I don't know. Again, the powers of the TVA have some big question marks. Another thing I'll say, they contradicted themselves. And now we know that the timekeepers might not be real. Maybe it don't matter. But at one point, Loki asked Mobius, where does this all end? And he was like, the timekeepers are still figuring that out. They're still untangling the universe or whatever to find the best course. And I was like, okay, so we don't know what the end looks like. But then, what is her name? Rensley or whatever? She tells Mobius that me and you have both seen the beginning and end of existence. We know how this goes. So they contradicted themselves today. I don't know that all of time has happened already and there's one timeline, because then I don't see how there would ever be variance. If you already seen it from beginning to end, when does something change? And so Mobius, again, very clearly said they haven't figured out the end yet. They're still untangling that. And so I don't know. There's a lot of questions left about, again, what power the TVA really has, who obviously is running it and how, and what is time? Is time just being manipulated within their sense? Is these multiverses a reality for other people? I don't know. Do other people have access to the multiverse? What's the mirror universe? There's a lot of questions that this show brings up. And so I'm wondering what all that means. But it was a great episode. That's all I got to say. It was a great episode. It had enough to make up for episode 3 and also be good on its own. So I have to get them props. I don't know why they did episode 3, but this was great. So I'm going to give it an A+. Can't wait to see what happens next. There's probably some other questions and stuff I forgot, but go to the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. And remember, if you heard it here, it's official canon.